So my journey began with me flying over the ocean, looking into the water below me for small fish or the floating dismembered fingers and toes of the people who were unwillingly relocated to the bottom of the ocean by means of rope and a heavy object. This is after all Mafia, and I am after all not actually a seagull. This is really me, the Italian bloke sitting in a booth like a loser all by his lonesome. As it turns out, I'm actually waiting for my blind date to arrive. Hey, hold on just a second. I think I've been catfished. Just kidding. This is Detective Wrinkly Sack of the NYPD. And we're meeting here today because I've gotten myself into some trouble, and I need some help getting out of it. It's a really long story, though, that takes about 10 hours to explain, but I'm going to try and condense it into 10 minutes just for your pleasure. You see, it all began late one night in 1930 while I was just chilling outside my taxi cab sucking on a durry when out of nowhere a couple of my paisanos came hauling ass around the corner and asked me very, very nicely and politely for a lift in my taxi cab. They seemed like nice, respectable young lads, and I didn't want to die, so I obliged, and on our jolly way we went. Or at least until another car full of Italian-American lads who were also in a bit of a hurry came and crashed right into my taxi. Then everyone started shouting at the top of their lungs, "Vaffanculo" and "Testa di cazzo," and shooting at each other, and it was crazy, and I got a bit excited too. And so I decided it would be a good idea to go full monster truck madness on the other car, and I got right under it and drove it around a little bit until it kind of blew up with me under it. And well, yeah, hey, look, it me. It was fine though, and when we finally got to our destination, the two fellas I dropped off thanked me and gave me an envelope full of asbestos. I immediately went and sold the asbestos to some crackheads and told them that it was crack, and then I came home to smell the fat stack of cheese that I'd suddenly accumulated for myself almost out of nowhere. I'll be honest, I'd always promised myself that I'd do things by the books, but money changes people, and now I was ready to become a gangster. But first I had to drop this cranky old bird off to wherever the heck it was she said she wanted to go. I don't know, I wasn't listening. Ironically, however, despite being a taxi driver, I was still really, really bad at driving. Either way, I finished my hard day's work and decided to treat myself to a nice espresso. It was yummy and the cup was also almost entirely filled with whiskey. I was hammered. And so was my car. I thought that this might have actually been a secret WWE audition, so I really laid it on thick and rolled around on the floor like a soccer player for about 30 minutes. Then boom, I got up and I piss-bolted away, knowing darn well that the only place I'd find refuge and help from the mob was from the mob. I sprinted across the road with no regard for the oncoming traffic and into the arms of my saviors, Paula Abdul and Slippy. They had that big dick energy, you see, and told the guys chasing me that I was Don Salieri's favorite taxi driver, and that if they wanted a word with a me, they have to have a word with a Paul Abdul's shotgun. It, however, seemed like they had some kind of shotgun allergy because they didn't want to talk to me that much anymore. Strange. On the plus side, though, these idiots chasing me back here gave me a reason and an in to try and work my way into the familia. Don Salad is good for you was the patriarch of the family. A fairly unassuming, generally kind and well-temperamented gentleman that looked like the uncle you only ever saw once a year at Christmas and who always gave you more money than a kid your age knew what to do with. I told him that I was sick of stronzos smashing my taxi cab when I was just trying to enjoy a nice succulent Chinese meal. And that I would like to join the Mafia in an attempt to prevent this from happening in the future. I also never wanted to drive a taxi cab again, and I wanted to make fat stacks of money that I could use to become a baller Instagram influencer and TikTok star. Don Salami told me that he loved TikTok and was 100% on board with making my dreams become memes. And so, just like that, I was now a member of the family. Now that I was a mobster, it only made sense that I get my whistle wet by going and delivering some steaming hot revenge to the jackasses that banged up my cab. I went and got acquainted with Spicy Tits McGee, who gave me a beautifully handcrafted timber baseball bat with which to cave in the heads of my enemies. Naturally, I then spent the next 10 minutes trying to push him out of his workshop and off the balcony and then into the middle of the road. Unfortunately, my mastermind plan to get him run over was too great for Mafia to handle, and so I gave up, embarrassed and defeated. Finally, however, I gave in and did what the game wanted me to do. I hopped in my spam can on wheels and floored it to the headquarters of those douchebags that smashed up my taxi cab with the baseball bat one day prior. The sign said park here, so I parked here and then headed across the street to crack a few skulls with my brand new toy. Paula created a diversion while I snuck up from behind and choked out the dude at the gate so I could let Paula in. Then we beat the ever-living crap out of their cars to show them how sad it is when someone comes and smashes your car with a baseball bat. Similarly, we completely wrecked anybody who tried to intervene. The very next day, Paula, Abdul, Slippy, and myself headed out on a very special mission that I can't tell you about because I actually recorded this video about 8 months ago and I can't remember a damn thing about what happened. But what I do remember is that we definitely squashed a couple of people on the way out of the garage. As we pulled into the driveway of the motel we were going to pick up that dirty money, I made sure I crashed my car as hard as I could into the petrol bowser in the hopes that I'd blow up the entire building and myself in the process. Slapper and Cheese Dick got out and headed in to pick up the money while I very intelligently sparked up a cancer stick right next to the shattered petrol bowsers I crashed into 20 seconds earlier. Cancer, my favorite. Just then, Paula Abdul came running out bleeding and screaming and mostly bleeding. Some other bozo came chasing him out with a gun and told him that he wasn't going to pay him for the and to go home and never come back. I told him that not paying for a was completely unacceptable, and I cracked out my little revolver to take care of business. But before doing that, obviously, I tried one more time to blow up the petrol bowsers and myself in the process, but it didn't work. Oh well, strike two. The first thing I did was sneak in and end the existence of the goon patrolling the second floor hallway, and then completely abandon the stealth route, going downstairs, guns blazing. I'll be honest with you. Shooting these buffoons with a shotgun in such a tight space was surprisingly cathartic. I also, for some reason, went and collected all the dead bodies of the people I'd killed and made a nice, neat little pile in the backyard. Before leaving, though, I went and collected Slippy, who found himself locked in the kitchen and then copped a ginormous bag of money to the face from the one guy that I obviously forgot to give the old Swiss cheese treatment to. But you know what that means, right? Car chase time! After unloading countless shotgun shells into his car and popping him in the head, I finally got him to stop and then hopped out of my car and finished his buddies off with the old boom boom stick and shot him in the head once more for good luck. Meanwhile, somewhere in another part of town, however, Don, I think I might have anger issues, was beating some guy up with a tire iron in broad daylight because he was a little bit frustrated. Sometime later, I thought it would probably be a good idea to head to the local raceway and sabotage the car of the best racer in town. After all, tomorrow was race day and I'd bet the entire house on myself, who, consequently, was also racing in the same race. I borrowed it and then thrashed the crap out of it and took it to Shady Jimbo, who stuffed a banana in the engine hole. Then race day was upon us and I absolutely crushed it. I mean, look, look at that sick hair, bro. Wow. I'm really good. Later that evening, however, old man Luigi told me that I had to marry his daughter or he'd stab me in the neck with the beer bottle I was drinking out of. I accepted. Fortunately, she wasn't ugly. I decided to walk her home, and seeing as we were now engaged, I decided to buy her some nice cheap flowers. The local boys in the hood didn't really take kindly to my newly established relationship with Sarah, and they tried to start me in an alleyway, which is a bad idea. A really, really bad idea. I mean, I tried to tell them, I said, just don't do it, you know, it's not going to end well. They didn't listen, and it didn't end well. The following day, I decided to spend some quality time trolling Paula Abdul, who just wanted me to get in the bloody car and go for a drive with him. It's hard to believe that I spent something like 25 minutes trying to get him to run over me with his car. But I did. Jimmy Dingleberries called me into his workshop to thank me for pushing him off the balcony a few days ago and offered me a nice new semi-automatic pistol to shoot fools with. I was excited because I loved shooting fools. I was so excited, in fact, that I ran straight downstairs, got in my car, and spent the next 20 minutes crashing it repeatedly into Don Salami's until it was a complete, total, and absolute write-off. Fortunately, though, we had many more cars in the workshop, so I went down to Ralphie Boy, got a brand new car, and then also used that to smash repeatedly into the 2 cars that I'd already totaled. Yay! I think I have problems. Now I know I probably should have just forgotten about the bozos that tried to start some crap with me and Sarah a couple of days ago, but I just couldn't. So I went back with Paula to finish them off. For good. They ran away and somehow, I don't remember how, I ended up in this horrible situation where someone threw a Molotov cocktail at me and I horrifically burnt to death. And if there's one thing I really, really hate, it's burning to death. The long, tedious car chase ensued that resulted in them slamming into a hard metal object. Then, ironically, another couple of hard metal objects slammed into the sides of their heads. They were now dead, and all was good in the world once more. After such a stressful morning, though, the only place I wanted to be was the Corleone Gentlemen's Club for gentlemen. So I parked my car, headed inside, and beat the living crap out of the bouncer for absolutely no reason whatsoever.
Know where I can find the manager?
I just watched the door, pal.
Still to this very day, I have no idea what was going on in this room, but it sounded like whatever they were doing, they were having a pretty good time. Such a good time, in fact, that it almost seemed criminal. I decided that the only thing that made sense at this point was to completely level the entire building and shake the grip that it had on the horny men of wherever the hell this city was. I was sure they'd thank me for it after. Desperate to escape the hundreds of police officers that miraculously turned up seconds after me blowing up the building, I sprinted from rooftop to rooftop looking for a way to get back to street level. Funnily enough, I eventually found myself inside a church. Even funnier, it was the church where they were holding the funeral for the dudes Paula Abdul and I shot in the car earlier that morning. But plot twist, one of the dudes actually managed to survive 2 bullets to the head, and he looked pretty good, considering it only happened that morning. Anyway, that could only mean trouble. He knew our names, he knew our faces, he knew how big my salami was because I peed in the car window after shooting him, and then he knew nothing, because he was dead. Now, to celebrate all the fresh killing that had just taken place, Don Silky Socks offered to take me to his favorite pasta restaurant, Peepee's, to share a huge salami together. But obviously, a few short moments later, before we even got to have the first piece of spaghetti, several men in trench coats rocked up carrying Tommy guns that they remorselessly unloaded straight into Peepee's restaurant windows, killing absolutely everybody except Don Salami and me. And then, can you believe it, they tossed a bloody hand grenade in the window to try and finish things off. Cazzo! Being pretty sneaky though, I sneakied my way out the back door, then flanked them, pumping their buttholes full of lead. Take that, you filthy animal. Needless to say, when Don Tortellini came out clambering from the smoking rubble that used to be Peepee's, he wasn't smiling. He just kept on shouting, "That bastardo tried to touch my spaghetti!" We were now suddenly filled with determination to find out who tipped off the other family, telling them that we were going to be at Peepee's for lunch, and we were pretty sure we knew just who did it. Good old Chuck E. Cheese. Don Salami's bodyguard, who called in earlier that day, apparently sick. As it turned out, the only thing that was sick with that guy were the dirty things he was doing in the bedroom with his shoes still on. He was bloody quick though and hopped off the ground faster than you can say slap me on the ass and call me Charlie. Then he hopped out the window, jumped down the fire escape, and started sprinting off into the distance. He was fast, but I was faster. Then when I finally did catch him, bang bang boom 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 pow. You dead, bitch. Honestly, I had no idea the old man knew how to play soccer, but watching him kick that head around on the floor, I asked myself, why didn't this guy pursue a career in professional football? Anyway, after the attempted hit that happened at Peepee's restaurant, nothing was the same anymore. We were all balls deep in a gang war between the Salieri and the Morello families. Everyone was on high alert, but knowing that we had muscle like this guy right here, I was always able to sleep well at night. And obviously, the number of guns just kept casually laying around all over the place also made me happy. We were tired, though, of needing to watch our backs everywhere we went, of constantly having to check under our cars before we turned them on, and most importantly, of people touching our spaghetti. It was time to strike the marshmallow family where it hurt. Right between the legs, aka the ball sack. Now, we had reason to believe that Don Macchiato's brother, Skinny Cappuccino, was going to be on a boat at some aristocratic get-together for rich wankers, and I was going to infiltrate that boat dressed as a sailor and assassinate him in front of everybody. Obviously, though, before heading there, I got sidetracked again and spent way too much time trying to make the idiots outside our hideout surf on the roof of my car into traffic. But after that, I got ready to put in that work, baby. Looking back, though, Paula Abdul and Slippy really didn't look that confident, but I knew I'd get the job done. After all I needed to do was find the ICA drop-off, collect the 999 rubber ducks that Diana left for me, and oh, wait, hold on. Wrong game. It was all gravy, though, because there just so happened to be a poo-covered revolver hidden in the toilet. The bad news was that Sergio Marshmallow Man wasn't even there, but there was some other guy instead, so I popped his melon and then made my escape, baby. Meanwhile, however, in another part of town, Slippy and Marco Milky Tits were chasing Sergio Marshmallow in a car chase that would make Mama proud. He drove a Rolls Royce, though, which made him completely impervious to the effects of bullets, and it made Slippy and Marco Milky Tits crash into a tree instead. I, however, never crashed and was back at HQ test driving the brand new sports car that Don Salami bought on Gumtree. It was pretty good until I got into it and started driving it around, but I had a good time at least. Now almost everybody is dead, and hell-bent on revenge, I snuck into Sergio Marshmallow's house and planted a car bomb under his car, knowing that when he got in it and turned it on, kaboom! No escaping the jaws of death this time, sonny boy. It was almost a completely flawless plan too. At least until his missus decided to take the car for a spin instead. I swear I desperately tried to stop her, which I probably should have been able to considering I was a literal 10 feet away, but I moved with the speed of a sloth and my voice just projected with the power of a mouse, and she blew up with the pizzazz of somebody who just turned on the car that had a bloody car bomb under it. It was such a traumatic experience. I can't believe this has happened to me. Poor me. Oh. Even though literally nobody thought I did it, I had to escape. There was no time. I had to get out of there before the police started to suspect anything. So I left. Like a normal person, and then joined the boys for brunch at Don Salami's other favorite restaurant, Poo Poo's. And would you believe in that filthy, rotten coward hid behind the waitress, assuming that that was going to protect him? But he didn't know Paula Abdul. She was crazy. Now, you can say a lot of things about Sergio Marshmallow Man, but boy, could he run, and he was really good at avoiding bullets too. After a really long, tedious car chase, which I'm not going to include in this video because it's just boring to watch, I finally tracked him down, injured and wounded, and for some reason hiding inside the most flammable building on planet Earth. I knew just what I had to do. Now, shooting fools is fun, but this probably wasn't the best place to do it. I did, however, have a lighter in my back pocket. Yeah, time to burn, idiot.
No!
Catch, baby. And now that the brother was dead, it was finally time to take down the man himself. Donnie completely impractical white suit and end this gang war once and for all. A very intense car chase ensued, leading us to the local airfield where Donald McRonald was obviously planning to make his escape via UFO. As he tried to take off, I knew just what I had to do. I had to shoot out the bloody engines and wait for him to inevitably crash somewhere in town, where I did, with the fine precision of a highly skilled and learned doctor. And then after finally finding him crashed in some abandoned barn in the middle of bloody nowhere, I made him say hello to my little friend. Not gonna lie though, I felt a bit empty now. I mean, taking this guy down had been our goal ever since day one. Now he was dead. What were we going to do every day? Who were we going to shoot? I had a bad feeling about this. Night after night, we drove around the streets looking for someone to shoot, but there was nobody. It was too peaceful. No other gangs in town dared show their face on our turf. After all, our reputation had spread far and wide, and everyone knew me, Slippy, and Paula Abdul's MO: shoot first, ask questions later. Or just don't ask him at all. Now, in hindsight, I know I never should have listened to Paula. But we were all getting bored and our killing skills were getting rusty. It had been months since we'd done anything illegal, and we needed to wet our whistles to prevent them from getting crusty. Paula suggested that maybe we rob an out-of-town bank without ever telling the Don and keep the profits for ourselves so we could get out of this life of crime and start somewhere else. Or just buy Lamborghinis. I calmly let myself into the vault with the code that I guess I got off one of the many people that were sort of accidentally shot during the robbery, and then stole every single dollar in the vault. The alarm was ringing and the police would probably be here soon, so we decided to leave. All my years as a taxi driver meant that I knew the city like the back of my hand, and it was only a matter of minutes before I managed to completely evade the cops and make it to our safe house where we planned to stash the money until we figured out what to do with it all. Paula was absolutely stoked and I was pretty chuffed too, and we decided that we'd catch up the following day at Paula's apartment to discuss whether or not we'd get matching Lamborghinis with personalized license plates on them. As planned, I headed to Paula's apartment nice and early the following morning. But before going upstairs, I had a little bit too much fun with the old grandmas that was sitting downstairs in the street.
Get over! Get over!
Unfortunately, however, Paula's door was already open and Paula, well, let's just say that Paula's head was leaking a little bit. Who could have done this? I thought to myself, completely oblivious to the very obvious fact that there was literally nobody left in town that wanted beef with us, and the fact that we just robbed a bank without telling our boss. In hindsight, I should have known, but I'm just a dumb NPC and I don't know anything, so kiss my ass. I picked up the phone and called Slippy, and I told him the bad news. He didn't seem that surprised or sad. I wonder why. I told him that I had to get out of town with my family ASAP because whoever did this was almost definitely coming for me. Slippy told me that he'd arranged some money for me to escape and to meet him at the local art gallery or museum or whatever. Now, something about that cold, dark marble building felt off. It felt almost like a tomb, a place intended to be someone's final resting place. But I'm sure I was just being paranoid. There was also a really good chance that... Well, looks like my worries were not unfounded. And as it turned out, Slippy had tricked me into coming here to finish me off, just like he did to Paula Abdul. I couldn't believe it, Slippy! My best friend, the only man I ever let touch my spaghetti. We used to go to the broth together and everything. I felt betrayed and sad and then angry. There was no escaping me that day. No siree. Slippy was about to get slipped the hot from the end of my pistolero. As he lay there bleeding out on the floor, I remember exactly what was running through my mind. Coca-Cola should probably have more cocaine in it. And did I flush the massive bog that I dumped in the toilet that morning before leaving the house? I think the turd might still be there. And so that's what brought me here, to this point in the story. My meeting with Detective It's Okay to Drink on the Job. I shared this entire story with him and offered to testify against Don Salami in court in order for my and my family's protection. After all, at this point, I was a man on the run. My one and only friend Paula Abdul was dead, and I really needed to take a crap. In the end, however, everything went according to plan. I made a deal with the police, and although I ended up spending a little bit of time in jail myself, I finally got out at the ripe old age of about 70, and the remaining members of the Salieri family went to jail. This is me right here in the future, sitting with my now grown children and my old wife, reminiscing about the past, talking about the good old days, if you can call them that. But as the age-old saying goes, which I believe has been around since the caveman era, stitches get snitches. Hold on. And so I knew it was coming for me. It was just a matter of when. This was probably when. Two guys came up behind me with leather jackets, and I was pretty sure I was about to die.
Yes. Mr. Salieri sends his regards.
Well, guess I was right. Here I am lying on my beautiful lawn that I spent so many years cultivating. You know how much time and effort it took to grow a lawn like this? And those bastardos had the audacity to kill me on it! Mamma mia!